This team building exercise is called land skis. You can see one of them right here beside me. This is a classic. This is an outdoor kind of activity. It's about teamwork and working together and being a little bit uncomfortable and getting to a success together. So here's what it looks like. The whole activity takes probably 15 minutes once they start until once they end. However, with all of these kinds of activities, some groups are fast and some are not so fast. So here are the steps. So first, as the introduction, after you've got them set up, so there's going to be a starting line, there's going to be a finish line about 40 feet apart. The finish line should be marked with a cone or a line in the dirt or something, and they should know specifically what getting to the finish line means. Does the tip need to be past the finish line, or does the entire land ski need to be past the finish line? So you set them up and say, okay, welcome, we're going to do this exercise. Who's ever done this activity before? And it's good for you to know. And maybe you can ask them why. And sometimes you get to find out, like, they facilitate team building activities or whatever. It's interesting just to hear and to know. So sometimes, if there are folks who really know what they're doing, you can say, okay, you're going to be mute during the activity. So you start off after you find that out. So with this activity, everyone needs to work as a team. So what is a team? Well, you turn to your neighbor and discuss it. This is a term that we throw around all the time, but we don't often scratch beneath the surface to discover what we actually mean by team, because it's more than just a collective of people. Turn to your neighbor, go. And then after they discuss that for about a minute, have them turn back to the group and say, okay, what did you two discuss? What came up? What did you two discuss? What did you two discuss? Okay, so maybe our collective definition is a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. It's a good kind of conversation. So then you get to explain a little bit about teams. So you can say, who's ever played golf? Who's ever been on a golf team? Okay, so what golfing has teams. You may be on one of these kinds of teams in your life or in your community or in your work, but a golfing team has a unique set of characteristics. People work independently towards individual goals, but they still are a collective. That's one kind of team. There's another kind of team that we are going to be today, and it's like a basketball team, which is an integrated team where the success of the whole is 100% dependent on the word to use is the integration. The integrated team, individuals' actions either help or detract from the unified goal. There is just one unified goal. So today you're going to be an integrated team. So let me explain the rules. The rules are simple. Everyone needs to get safely from one side to another without touching the ground. And you can show them what one side means. Here's the starting and there's the ending. You could share this. So let me share this for a moment. So this is one land ski. Any team that is going to be trying to cross a finish line will be on two land skis because essentially they are walking on them. Everybody takes one step forward on the right, then one step forward on the left. However, we have two sets of land skis, and so you can have up to 16 people doing this. So if you do need to use the two sets of land skis, you can say, this is the only activity that we're doing that is a race. It's a competition. However, if we know how to do competition well in work and in life, it's not about trying to make another group feel bad. So it's no slander, only encouragement if you are feeding into the competition kind of thing. So the rules are, again, everyone on your team needs to get safely from one side to the other without touching the ground. If anyone falls off, you got to start over. Now, as a facilitator, you can be really lenient on this. Like if someone's toe comes off a little bit, and it's barely anything, that's okay. But if it's a big fall off or multiple people fall off, have them start over. Now, also your job as the facilitator is to stay really close. And you're like a buffer, your safety. There's a little bit of risk involved in this, in that there are, these are 4x4s, so they're 4 inches off the ground. Also, before you start and you explain what you're doing, ask, is there anybody's body who can't do this? That this would not be a good idea. Feel free to tell me, but tell me now. And then if so, you're going to have them be on the ground coaches. If you ever have more than 16 people, let's say you have 18 people, you're like, I'm going to need 2 coaches. Who could that be? And so they are essentially being on the side, helping to guide by just being alongside the group. Okay. So those are the instructions. If they try and ask you a ton of questions, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? I tend to be like, no, I tend to not answer and just say what I said. The instructions are everyone needs to get safely from this side to the other without touching the ground. But if they try and find weird little loopholes, like, I don't know, a weird loophole would be like, can we all get in a car and drive across or whatever? You can be like, no crazy weird ideas. Or no, I guess you don't need to say no crazy weird ideas, but like, no, that's, no, you can't, I know I didn't say that, but you can't do that. Because part of the idea with a team building activity, part of the success is they have to interpret. The rules aren't 100% clearly laid out or how they're going to get to success. Like if they try and ask you, how do we do this? You can just go back to the instructions are blah, blah, blah. So then they're going to figure out that everybody's left foot needs to be on one side, everybody's right foot needs to be on the other side, and then they walk together. So I'm going to show you. So, okay, so I've got it set up here. This is one. There would be another one set just beside, and essentially they hold on to the ropes. There are 7 ropes and 8 spots. So you can see there's like an extra spot at the front, or you might call it the back, that doesn't have a rope. So they figure that out after a little bit. So if you have 8 people and then they're like, hey, there's not enough ropes. So essentially one person has to be holding on to another person or something like that. That's a non-issue if you don't have 16 people, but again, 16 are the only ones. If they say, like, can we piggyback? You can go back to safely, and piggybacking is not safe in this activity. And that's essentially the whole thing. Now, afterwards, depending on part of the magic of how we do team building exercises is the power is in the debrief. So spend time on debriefing. So really be paying attention while they're doing it to what they're doing well and what they're not doing well in terms of team communication. I sometimes even need to take little notes for myself because I'm like, Jeremy he was the only cheerleader for the group. He consistently was like, come on, everybody, we can do this. Or sometimes somebody will have a negative comment and say something like, are we ever going to be able to do this? And then you can notice if that attitude spreads or not. So afterwards, make sure they celebrate. Sometimes they're just like, whew, we're done. So to be like, give yourselves a hand, give a high five, give an elbow bump or whatever to somebody else. Right now, you can also say in the beginning, if anybody's body can't physically do this or you don't feel comfortable being this close to somebody because of COVID and stuff, you can say they can bow out, but or they can be a coach. So the debrief would look like this. Okay, everybody, great job. Oh my goodness. So first, I want you to really put on your critical thinking skills and think back and evaluate. What did you do well? As a team, what did you do well? And they're going to say generic things like communication. And you're going to say, what do you mean? Tell me about it. Be really specific because there's so many different kinds of communication. Okay, great. And what else? And then if someone else is quiet, did you notice anything that worked really well? In a moment, we're going to get to, if somebody tries to say, we didn't do this very well, like, hold off. It's always important when we are debriefing something with the team to focus on also what we do well. It's really easy for us to identify, because we're problem solvers, the problems, right? So let's start first. This is important with what you did well. Okay, so then people are sharing. You as the facilitator also shine light on the strengths. I saw that you really did this. Or did anybody notice there was a cheerleader in the group who really, when things were hard, kept being really resilient or something like that? And then they'll be like, oh, is it this or is it? You can be like, sure, maybe it was many of them, but the person who really stood out to me was this person or whatever. Or this person kept levity and would throw in appropriate humor or whatever. And then, okay, so as with anything that we want to evaluate, let's also use a discerning kind of eye. If, and this is an important way to say, instead of what did you do poorly, if you were to do this again, what would you do differently? And this is a place where they might say, we would take more time to plan. What I often like to highlight also is you would advocate to listen to the other people's ideas. It's not survival of the fittest or the loudest voice wins, but when you're thinking about different ideas, was there anybody who had an idea who tried to get it said, but other people didn't listen or whatever? And so, so then you're going to flesh that out too. Great, right? You don't put no negative spin on like, yeah, you really should have fixed that. But like, how awesome that you can see that and identify that. So next time that you're in a team, you can really be thinking about that. And then you can ask them too, is there anything that we just did here that seems relevant to your life outside of here, whether it's your team with your family, your team at work? And so then hopefully they'll bring in some things. Now, depending on how much time you have to kill, meaning that if you have to be at this station for a certain amount of time, afterwards, then I would ask for you to have them all have their notebook and a pen, or if we have dry erase boards and dry erase markers, they could use that too. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody just to sit in a comfortable spot and think for yourself and write a little bit. First, what teams are you on? In your life, what teams are you on? Your personal life, your professional life. Now that we've kind of identified what a team is, it can be as small as you and one other person, or it can be huge. First, I want you to write out what teams you're on. Secondly, I want you to write about and think about what's working about any of those teams and what could be improved. Now, the beauty of team building exercises is, yes, they're fun, but also there's a lot to learn from them to extrapolate. That's really the goal of team building, is to extrapolate and be like, how does this show up in other parts of my life too? So then have them write maybe for 4 minutes or so by themselves, and then afterwards to say, okay, so now as you're wrapping it up, I usually say like 30 more seconds, and then, okay, so why don't you wrap it up? If you wouldn't mind, grab a partner, and would you share with them any ahas or things that you realized? If there's anything too sensitive or too fragile on there that you don't want to share, of course you don't need to. You get to decide what you want to share. So partner up. Okay, you're going to have 3 minutes to talk with your partner, or 5 minutes, or whatever. And then at the end, thank you all so much for doing this. I know some of you love doing things like this, and some of you would prefer to be doing something else. So way to go, stepping out of your comfort zone. Way to go, being in community together. Thanks for being with me. That's everything.